Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Grab a seat, because this story, it begins with a glass of wine I never ordered and a smirk that shattered everything. There was jazz music playing, real smooth, elevator kind of stuff, but I wasn't listening. I was too focused on the waiter who kept circling with tiny plates I didn't know how to eat. I just kept standing there, invisible, holding a glass of sparkling water and pretending I wasn't out of place. And then it happened. I turned to look for my wife, and instead of finding her eyes across the crowd like some romantic movie scene, I found her walking toward me. With him. She wasn't holding my hand. She wasn't smiling in the way I knew. She was laughing. That laugh. The one I used to think was mine. The laugh that used to bubble out of her when I'd say something stupid or trip over my own shoes trying to impress her. It was now echoing beside him, a man I didn't know, but instantly hated. He walked with the swagger of someone who never feared being wrong. Charcoal slacks, no tie, sleeves rolled up to reveal a tattoo that screamed, "I only care about rules when they benefit me." He had that face, the kind people trusted for no good reason. And the moment he saw me, his expression didn't change. He looked at me like he was bored, like I was the pause in their conversation. My wife said nothing, just casually turned to him and muttered something I couldn't hear. He didn't speak to me. He didn't offer a handshake. He just raised one eyebrow, looked me dead in the face, and laughed, soft, dismissive, like I was the punchline to a private joke. And then he handed me a glass of wine. "I think this one's yours," he said. I never asked for it. I never said I wanted anything. But he just handed it to me like it was some kind of trophy or poison. My wife finally spoke. "You okay, babe? You look pale." I was pale, because in that moment, I realized I wasn't part of her world anymore. I wasn't her date. I was her husband. A technicality, a box still checked on paper, but already scribbled over in her heart. And as they stood side by side, her in that navy dress she told me wasn't special enough for anniversaries, and him with that practiced smirk, I finally understood what it feels like to be politely erased. This wasn't a party. This was a presentation. And I was the footnote. I should have walked away right then. I really should have. But instead, I stood there, gripping the wine glass like it could anchor me in that polished rooftop nightmare. Maureen kept chatting with him. Damon, as I later overheard someone say, as if I wasn't right there. She didn't introduce me, didn't touch my arm, didn't even glance to see if I was still breathing. I started to feel like background furniture. Just another decorative plant at the edge of their private orbit. At one point, she laughed so hard at something he said that she reached for his shoulder and leaned in, her body folding toward him like it was instinct. I told myself I was imagining things. I always tell myself that. I stood there nodding along to a conversation I wasn't invited into. She finally turned to me and said, "Lowell, you're being quiet. Everything okay?" With that syrupy tone that people use on strangers who look lost. I gave some pathetic excuse about a headache. Damon looked at me and said, "Rough week at work?" Like he'd been briefed on my entire life. I almost asked him what he knew. I almost asked my own wife what exactly she'd told him about me. But I didn't. I smiled, muttered something polite, and excused myself to the restroom. Except I didn't go to the restroom. I just walked through the venue like a ghost, listening to laughter and fake congratulations bounce around the glass walls. I ended up by the catering table, pretending to be interested in some weird fusion appetizer I couldn't pronounce. And that's when I saw it. Across the venue, just past the hanging string lights and glass sculpture centerpiece, Maureen and Damon were walking toward the elevators, alone. She wasn't holding his hand, but she was close. Way too close. And she looked relaxed. Not like she was sneaking around. Like she was where she belonged. I watched them disappear behind a corner. I stood frozen, a plastic toothpick in my hand, trying to remember how I ever got here. When did I become the man who watches his wife walk off with someone else and does absolutely nothing? I must have stood by that catering table for 15 minutes, watching people laugh and toast their little victories while my mind spiraled. My thoughts weren't even logical. They were scrambled, full of random images and sounds, like pieces of a life I didn't recognize anymore. Maureen and I used to text each other during boring meetings, send dumb memes, complain about our neighbor's loud dog. Now she was slipping off elevators with another man while I stood alone, debating whether I should grab another mini quiche just to have something to do with my hands. I didn't go looking for them. I told myself I wasn't that kind of husband. But the truth was, I was afraid of what I might see. I just drifted back toward the railing overlooking the harbor and stared at the water, trying to convince myself that everything was fine, that this was just some professional moment I'd misunderstood, that Maureen was loyal, honest, that I hadn't seen her fingers brush his back when they walked away. 20 minutes later, she reappeared like nothing happened, her hair slightly wind-blown, lips freshly glossed. "Sorry," she said lightly. "Damon wanted to show me the branding mock-ups on his phone. You'd hate them." And just like that, she folded the lie into a joke, like I was too boring to care anyway. She leaned in to kiss my cheek, cold, dry, and grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray. I watched her sip it while texting someone, probably him, her screen tilted away from me like a secret. I wanted to leave. I should have. But instead, I stood there beside her like a placeholder, a rented mannequin with a ring. And when Damon walked past us an hour later, he didn't say a word. He just looked at me again, same smirk, same eyes, and gave the slightest nod. Not hello, not goodbye, just a silent message I felt in my bones. A message that said, you know. And the worst part? He was right. The ride home was quiet, but not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful. It was the sharp, glassy silence that fills a car when two people are pretending they don't feel something cracking in the space between them. I stared out the window while Maureen scrolled her phone, occasionally letting out soft breaths that sounded like laughter stifled just enough to keep me guessing. When we pulled into our driveway, she didn't even wait for me to unlock the front door like she usually does, just walked ahead, heels clicking with that same confidence she wore at the party. I followed, still unsure if I was going to confront her or bury it under a blanket of false peace. Inside, she poured herself another glass of wine and asked if I wanted anything. I said no, and she shrugged. "Your loss," she mumbled, sinking into the couch with her legs tucked beneath her like it was just another normal Friday night. I sat across from her, staring, trying to find my wife in that face, trying to recognize the woman I used to fall asleep next to without doubts. I finally asked, "So, what's going on with you and Damon?" She didn't flinch. She didn't even pretend to be confused. She just gave me a look that said, "Really? You're going to start this now?" Then she sighed like I was exhausting her. "He's new. We're friendly. That's all. Don't make this weird, lol." But it was already weird. It had been weird the moment he looked at me like I was irrelevant. The moment she chose not to hold my hand in a room full of strangers. I wanted to yell, to demand explanations, but I couldn't find the words that didn't make me sound insecure. So instead I just asked, "Why didn't you tell me you two were close?" She laughed, an actual laugh, sharp and unkind. "Because we're not. You're reading into everything again, like you always do." And just like that, I became the problem. Her tone shut the door on the conversation before I even knocked. I went upstairs early, laid in bed staring at the ceiling, and listened as she stayed downstairs texting for another hour. And in the dark, I finally admitted something to myself. I wasn't afraid she was cheating. I was afraid she'd already moved on, and just hadn't told me yet. The next morning was a performance. She brewed coffee, hummed some song under her breath, and acted like nothing had happened, as if the previous night had been an ordinary, uneventful company party. I watched her from across the kitchen island, noticing how she never once looked me in the eye. That avoidance felt louder than any argument we could have had. I asked her what she had planned for the day, and without missing a beat, she said she was going into the office. On a Saturday. "There's a lot of backlog since the new team came in," she explained, brushing her hair into a ponytail. "Damon's helping coordinate a pitch we need to finalize." She said his name like she was testing me. I didn't take the bait. I just nodded like a fool, even though I felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. I waited until she left, then sat on the couch with my face in my hands, wondering how long I could keep pretending. I wasn't just dealing with suspicion anymore. It was worse. It was the slow, creeping feeling that I was being deliberately erased from the story of my own marriage. I tried distracting myself, but my mind kept returning to that smirk. Damon's smirk. The way he looked at me like he was already living in the life I used to share with Maureen. By noon, I gave in. I checked her location on my phone, something I'd never done before. It showed she was at her office building. Relief washed over me for a second, but then I questioned why I felt relieved at all. Was that the bar now? That she was where she said she'd be? The knot in my stomach only got tighter. I told myself I was just going to drive by, just to confirm, just to prove to myself that I was being paranoid. But when I got there, I didn't even park. I just circled the block like a coward. On my second pass, I saw her car in the lot, his too. Same car he drove to the party. They were both there. Together. On a Saturday. And I couldn't bring myself to go in. I couldn't face the look she might give me. The one that says I don't belong there anymore. So I went home. Sat in the driveway for almost an hour, wondering when I became the kind of man who's scared of his own wife. That night, she came home late. Said they grabbed lunch while working. Long day, she mumbled. Damon's a machine. I smiled like I believed her. Then I watched her walk past me again, phone already in her hand, and realized something terrifying. I was no longer part of her long days, or her long nights. I was just the guy still refilling the coffee filters and pretending he didn't see what was right in front of him. By Sunday, I started noticing patterns I hadn't seen before. Or maybe I had seen them. I just refused to acknowledge what they meant. Her sudden enthusiasm for late-night strategy calls. The way she locked her phone now, even in the house. The new perfume bottle I found behind the bathroom mirror that I never saw her wear around me. Every little detail became a clue. Every action felt scripted. Every excuse just convincing enough to keep me silent. I spent most of the day doing chores I didn't care about. Laundry, dishes, reorganizing the garage. Anything to avoid sitting still long enough for my thoughts to corner me. Around 5, she came downstairs wearing jeans and a blouse I hadn't seen before. Casual, but carefully chosen. I asked where she was going. She said, Damon invited a few of us to his place for drinks. Just a little wind down after the project. She didn't even look at me. Just kept tapping her phone, thumbing through texts with a half smile. It's mostly the creative team, she added, like I should feel reassured. I asked, am I invited? And she actually laughed. Lol, it's not that kind of thing. It's just us work people. You wouldn't know anyone. That last sentence hit me harder than I expected. You wouldn't know anyone. Not you wouldn't enjoy it. Not you'd be uncomfortable. Just a casual confirmation that I no longer belonged to her world. I watched her drive off with that lightness in her posture, like someone escaping a weight. And I realized I was the weight. I was what she shed when she stepped out that door. Hours passed. I paced the house. Thought about calling. I didn't. Instead, I searched Damon's name online. Found his LinkedIn, his public Instagram. I wasn't proud of it. But I scrolled through dozens of curated moments. Vacation photos, leadership retreats, group shots where Maureen was sometimes blurry in the background, smiling like she had nothing to hide. At midnight, she still wasn't home. I texted, hey, everything okay? No reply. At 1:14 a.m., the front door clicked. She crept in, shoes in hand, hair slightly undone. She froze when she saw me on the stairs. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. She just walked past me and whispered, don't start. And I didn't. Because whatever she was going to say next, I already knew it wouldn't be the truth. The next morning was the kind where the sun felt intrusive, like it had no business lighting up a house so full of silence. She acted like nothing had happened. She poured herself coffee, scrolled her phone, and barely glanced at me, except for a single, tired morning that sounded more like a warning than a greeting. I wanted to ask her where she'd been, what took so long, why she didn't answer my message. But I didn't. I just sat there like a prop in our own kitchen, waiting for a version of her that wasn't coming back. By noon, she left again, claiming errands, though she didn't say what kind or where. I was alone, so I did something I never imagined I'd do. I opened her laptop. I know, privacy, trust, all of that. But I'd already lost those things. I wasn't invading her space. I was looking for pieces of mine. The laptop wasn't even password protected. It opened right up. Maybe because she didn't think I'd ever look. Maybe because she didn't care if I did. The first thing I saw was a chat app one didn't recognize. Not email. Not Slack. Something else. I clicked it. Her recent conversation was still open. With Damon. His messages were casual, almost smug. Last night was amazing. You looked incredible. Hers. You make it way too easy to forget about real life. I sat there, frozen, reading the words again and again. Not angry. Not shocked. Just hollow. I scrolled back a little more. More messages. More late-night jokes. Photos. Him at a cabin. Her asking, when's the next escape? I closed the laptop and just sat there. The kitchen felt different. Smaller. Like the walls were folding in and I wasn't supposed to be there anymore. When she came home, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. She kissed me on the cheek, tossed her keys in the bowl like always, and walked right upstairs. And I realized the sickest part of all this wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how easily she wore the lie, how practiced her rhythm was now, how familiar this version of her had become. I wasn't married to a stranger. I was married to someone who learned how to smile while vanishing. And I didn't know what scared me more, the idea that she'd been planning to leave, or that she already had and just forgot to take me out of the picture. I didn't confront her right away. Not because I was afraid of the truth, I already had that, but because I needed time to understand what I wanted from the wreckage. For days, I moved like a shadow through our house, pretending to care about groceries, laundry, the weather. I didn't touch her, barely spoke, and she didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she just didn't care. I kept hearing Damon's name in passing. He's such a visionary. We've got a great dynamic. He understands how I think. It was like someone replacing me in slow motion. But I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was planning. Not revenge. Not drama. Just freedom. I started quietly packing my things. One box at a time. Old sweatshirts, a few books she never noticed were gone, my dad's watch. I opened a new checking account. Found a rental an hour out of the city, quiet, surrounded by trees, with a fireplace that worked and no shared walls. And then, one morning while she was still asleep, I left a note on the kitchen counter. It didn't beg or accuse. It simply read, "You've already started a new life." I just made it official. I left my wedding ring next to it, upside down, because I didn't want her to think I hesitated. Walking away wasn't loud or dramatic. It was calm, clean, like closing a book you no longer wanted to finish. I haven't heard from her since. And maybe that's the real answer. It's been 3 months now. My place is small, but peaceful. I started cooking again. I adopted a rescue dog named Milo. I even reconnected with an old college friend who reminded me what genuine laughter sounds like. I'm still healing, still piecing together who I am without her. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like a placeholder. I feel like a person. If you've made it this far, thank you. And if you've ever been through something like this, I hope you know you're not alone. Sometimes the quietest exit is the strongest one. Let me know in the comments. What's the most unexpected turning point you've ever witnessed in history, big or small? I'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Subscribe for more true stories that hit where it hurts and heal where it matters.